What is the one thing which will make your CV a guarantee as a UK software engineer? Portfolio. The answer is portfolio. My name is Isaac, previous CTO of a funded startup, and I run the checkout team at Pretty Little Thing. Today I am discussing how to make your CV a sure thing. The caveat to this is that this is kind of like the one thing that's within your control. Obviously there are other things that would impact your CV to a significant level, such as had you worked at Google? Are you a nepotism baby? Can your dad kind of just put you in positions? That's all fair. You don't really have control over these things. The thing that I'm talking about is the only thing you really do have control of in the short term. Plus, I feel like if you already worked at Google, you wouldn't be watching these videos because you know how to get your job. Okay, so now we know that portfolios are being looked at. The rest of this video, I'm going to be explaining how to actually build one. It is somewhat flexible depending on the role that you're going for. For example, if you're going for a front-end role, it is far more likely your portfolio will be more visually aligned, but then back-end role could be more like GitHub, repo, code stuff. The three types of portfolio content we're going to be focusing on are code pieces. This is your actual GitHub repo work. If you work on open source projects, even better. You have concept pieces, which it's kind of content for non-existent products. So redesigns or redevelopment of existing websites, a landing page for something that's not a real product, stuff like that. And then finally, there are actual projects, which are small self-contained services, which I will expand on later. Okay, code portfolio pieces. The cool thing about this is the other two kind of combine to create this anyway. So if you're using code to create a concept or a small self-contained product, you're gonna have to store it somewhere anyway. So actually just showing someone the GitHub is more or less a code portfolio. If you know that you're doing this, the only thing you need to really be aware of is how you structure your code when deploying online for people to see. You don't have to be fancy and overcomplicated, but you do need to make sure that you're using correct structures and that your Git commits make sense in how they're uploaded. So you need to adhere to code principles. You need to make sure the file structure is neat and consistent. Naming conventions are all consistent. You want to use a linter like Pretty or something like that syntactically structures all your stuff and will flag up ES errors. Any tech stack that they mentioned that they're looking for in the role of frameworks, if they want someone that works with React and Redux, these are exactly what you want to put in your code portfolio when you build the other two projects or just work on some open source software. One thing that people often forget as well is commit history, and this is really telling. Many jobs will often advertise that they want someone that does TDD, which is test-driven development, which the concept of this is before developing the code itself, you will build a test which fails because the code doesn't work. And then as you work on the code and create code that works, the test will pass, which is a really nice way of like regression proofing and checking your work as you go. Also, objectively aligns you with where you're trying to go before even coding. So it actually is a cool practice. They will give you a task they want you to complete, to put it on GitHub, and then to send them the link to the GitHub. But they're actually quite crafty because they can see the commit history. For example, if you code everything and then upload it all at once, so you've done the work, then added the unit tests, it looks a little bit messy because there's just one commit, and that's kind of bad practice. Because if all your code is kind of stagnant on your device and you wait ages to upload it, you could potentially losing data, and also it's more messy with bigger projects. You want to do smaller commits as possible so that if there's an individual problem or something, that can get reverted out without destroying everything else. And then also, if you do all the work and then add unit tests at the end of it, they can see that in the commit history. So be very aware that if someone is looking at your Git, they can see the way that you work. Now, although this might sound like a disadvantage, this is actually a very big plus. Because if you do your commit history properly, you look very professional and certified. It's a big vote of confidence to people that would be checking the work. And because this is a thing that most people overlook, if your commit history is very clean, well organized and structured, it will work very positively for you. So just in general, clean code base, make sure you're adhering to name conventions. So for example, for variables and file structure, respect whichever case you stick to, whether it's camel case or underscores, whatever it is you're doing, make sure it's consistent. Use BEM for CES, which stands for Block Element Modifier. I will put a link in the description below, but if you're using CES, that's a naming convention to use. Use conventional commits for GitHub, which is another naming convention for when you commit your changes. I will put a link in the description below. Some companies sign up forms for jobs literally just have a widget where you can upload your GitHub URL and they can just check stuff from there. So it is a cool thing to have. The only other advice I can give you is if you work on open source projects, not only does it look better because it looks like you're involved and active with the community, but it shows you've worked on larger projects. If you're looking for open source projects, you can literally just do this on GitHub. Any package you use, there will be an issues tab if it's big enough. And on the issues tab, you can click it and you can see everyone's problems. You can literally go into someone's problem, and if you think you can make a fix for it, you make a PR and you send it. Ideally, put it in the issues tab so that people can see it and it'll get flagged and therefore more likely to get merged. but literally just getting involved with projects, doing stuff like this looks really good, and you can talk about it in your CV. GitHub also has a whole section for finding projects you can contribute to, whether by trends or collections. I will bind a link below, but GitHub do encourage this and make this accessible for people. After that, you have concept pieces. Now, content pieces are a great way for you to just reflect on what you think you excel at and really bring that to the forefront. If you're a great designer, you can design a landing page and develop that. The product or service doesn't even need to be real. What was really popular when I was coming up actually was people would do redesigns of existing services and redevelopment. So if you're in the music sector or the job you want to apply for is in the music sector, you could redesign the Spotify landing page or that web player, something like that. So it's in a service that exists, it shows you to a degree that you're relevant and makes them interested because you've got a reference point that you're coming from that everyone's aware of and then building on top of. So you don't need to build a service, you can just work on highlight your skills. This isn't necessarily just for design, you can do this for animation, page flows, or even caching techniques. You could have a website which, loads in data, caches it as almost as an example of like how you use state management. Even if you're not great at design, you can actually use other people's design and develop. So if you go into Behance and check out UI UX, I will put a link below in the description. There's a whole section of people that have done sites for services or companies that don't even exist. So there's no copyright, you can't just use it. You're not really making money off it, so you don't really need to credit the people that are doing it. You're kind of just using this as inspiration to show you can build things as seen. However, if you can't design and you're taking someone else's design, do not say that you did the design because the employer will end up expecting it from you, and that's not the point. Just being able to recreate a design is good enough as a front-end developer, and stick with that. If you're better with the back-end, you can still do concept pieces with websites, but it could be something like accessing a pre-existing API and then showing that on a web page. So something to do like Google Maps, you want to search for stuff, it could be a small interface like that. However, if this is what you're doing, it probably makes more sense to go to the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is a small project. So small projects are basically just their own encapsulated service, and this is great because not only does it show more personality, it actually also shows a degree of initiative because you're making something that's functional, even if it wouldn't be business viable. A good friend of mine created a web app called Vanilla, whereby you can log in with your Twitter and it will check all your tweets to see if you've said anything that could be deemed negative in recent years and cleans it up. He also created a web app called Kaizenflow, which is essentially a deep work web app where you can do dedicated sessions of work and it plays music in the background and gives you prompts and sort of times you as you work. The branding behind it is this tool gives you a dedicated time for deep work, plays some music in the background, has some nice visuals, it logs your time. You can also log in with your Twitter to share the sessions that you've done, which is a really cool branding feature. And the nice thing about this is not only does it show personality and his interests such as deep work, towards the bottom of the page there's like a YouTube link which goes over it, so it shows his interests. But the other great thing is like he's not actually done anything crazy, but that's what's so special about it. It's a very interesting and great use of what's already available and shows so much initiative. Great opportunity to show personality and align yourself with certain cultural aspects that you may be interested in, such as the music that he chose and the whole deep working vibe that he went with. There's a website called ProgrammableWeb, which is also in the description, surprise, surprise, and on this site you can actually search for free APIs. So if you wanted to make a small product which was like, oh, you want to find out where you can park, you go to the search bar, you type in park. For some reason the search is kind of broke at the moment, you can't actually search on the website, so I would suggest putting ProgrammableWeb and then Googling it. I'm sorry, normally it does work, this is not my fault. If you wanted to use this parking API, you could also pair it up with Google Maps, which is a free API, and you could have a little service of like, hey, I want to know where I can park. You type it in, you search, and it shows you parking areas. The point isn't to make something that you can sell, the point is to make something functional, even if there are other services out there that do it. For example, I'm pretty sure Google actually can show you this information. If you can sell it, that's a bonus, but I think I'd actually advise against it because so much nonsense comes with selling and work. I think you'd actually be derailing yourself from the point, which is creating a portfolio piece. The more it looked like it would sell, the better it is. You can put donations or payment, and they don't even necessarily need to work, but it does actually add a degree of authenticity. I recently connected with a friend who has been doing talks all over the world on iOS development, and I checked out his personal website and he has a link to this. I'm going to put it in the description below again, but there's a service called Ko-fi, Ko-fi, where you can sign up and people can pay for a coffee of yours. Now, if you had this on the service that you're using, it looks really cool because it's like you're actually involved in the community, it's familiar, and then you can actually also get friends or pay yourself for a couple of coffees, and it adds a degree of legitimacy. So again, the main thing you're trying to do is you're building a narrative behind a service. It can show personality, it can line you culturally, it can show that you build things, and it shows initiative. You can add additional things also, like connecting it to popular APIs and using a buy me a coffee thing to show that people have used it and like you are involved in the community. Those are the three main methods that I would suggest when building a CV portfolio. Beyond that, realistically, it's kind of just doing higher more prestigious job roles, which it's something that you build over the course of a career. It's not something you can whip up in a couple months like what I'm talking about. All the links are below. I do hope this was helpful. This is just my personal experience on what I used to build a portfolio when I was coming up and trying to get jobs. After university, I was a freelancer for about 2-3 years, didn't have work at all. So this is kind of how I jump-started my first job with having no prior work experience. If you know someone who's looking to make the transition into tech or is currently in tech looking to get a role, please send them this video so they can make a more informed decision. Thank you guys.